Hello.
Hi. We've reached Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. And the Watchtower has always had something to say about this verse, so let's read that one verse by itself first.
And as for you, O Daniel, make secret the words, and seal up the book, until the time of the end. Many will rove about, and the true knowledge will become abundant.
Well, the Watchtower has always said that whereas Daniel is told he won't know what these things are about, he will go to his grave and rise up at the end. He won't know what they're about. Nobody else will. They will uniquely have the divine privilege of unsealing the book of Daniel and Revelation. So it's interesting that the running to and fro, which of course you can relate to if you're a Jehovah's Witness, we've been spreading their interpretations of Daniel for generations now. Literally for 4 to 5 generations we've been teaching the world the truth about what these things mean. Yet we're oblivious to the ways we have changed our own interpretations of this passage several times. The biggest one we'll get to in a minute, but let's read the entirety of the rest of chapter 12, 5 to 13.
Okay. And I saw, Daniel, and look, there were 2 others standing, one on the bank here of the stream, and the other on the bank there of the stream. Then one said to the man clothed with linen, who was up above the waters of the stream, how long will it be to the end of the wonderful things? And I began to hear the man clothed with linen, who was up above the waters of the stream, as he proceeded to raise his right hand and his left hand to the heavens, and to swear by the one who is alive for time indefinite. It will be for an appointed time, appointed times and a half. And as soon as there will have been a finishing of the dashing of the power of the holy people to pieces, all these things will come to their finish. Now as for me, I heard, but I could not understand, so that I said, O my Lord, what will be the final part of these things? And he went on to say, Go, Daniel, because the words are made secret and sealed up until the time of the end. Many will cleanse themselves and whiten themselves, and will be refined. And the wicked ones will certainly act wickedly, and no wicked ones at all will understand, but the ones having insight will understand. And from the time that the constant feature has been removed, and there has been a placing of the disgusting things that is causing desolation, there will be 1,290 days. Happy is the one who is keeping in expectation, and who arrives at the 1,335 days. And as for you yourself, go toward the end, and you will rest. But you will stand up for your lot at the end of the days.
So Daniel doesn't get to understand what he himself is writing down for our blessing. But the Watchtower has consistently said it does understand these things, and for 5 or 6 decades it had an explanation as to what these periods were. 1,260 days, the times and half a time, 1,290 days, and 1,335 days, and also the 2,300 days back in chapter 8. So they had an interpretation of all these things that were consistent with their way of interpreting the Gentile times in Daniel 4, as they think. And that was the day-year theory. So for at least 50 years, the Watchtower, among other groups, taught that the 1,260 years was up until 1799, with the advent of Napoleon that we just mentioned in a prior segment. And that looked like a plausible scenario, since, of course, Napoleon had invaded Egypt, among his many other exploits. Then they had the 1,290 being overlapping the 1260 and extending another 30 years to 1829. And then they had the 1335 again overlapping the 1260 and extending, 75 years now from 1799 to 1874. So you can see the significant dates of 1799, the beginning of the time at the end, and 1874, presumably, according to their certainty, their preaching work actually for about 60 years, the second presence or invisible presence of Jesus Christ.
Right.
That was the way they officially interpreted these dates.
Yeah.
This was part of their very message that they took while running to and fro in their various exploits. Now, what have they shifted these prophecies to mean over the decades? Well, if you look at those two books, the familiar most recent book, and then this one that many of us studied back in the 70s, in Coming World Government, if you look in the appropriate places in there, 301 by the way, in this one, 301 in the Modern Daniel book, which is now, I understand, also out of print.
Yeah.
The one published in 1999. In that book, page 301, they have a chart showing their modern interpretations of these dates. And they apply according to this method of understanding that they've now been adhering to for some, at least 50 years. 1260 is from 1914 to 1918. The 1290 is not an overlapping period, but now a period of days from the setting up of the League of Nations until the Cedar Point Convention in 1922.
Okay, that's where I start rolling my eyes.
Even then?
Yeah, even then. When I was a witness, when they started connecting it to conventions, I'd kind of look around to see if anybody else was rolling their eyes. And then just think, well, who am I? I guess I just don't get these things. I don't have insight.
You don't have insight. You're not one of the elect here.
Yeah.
It's taking God's wisdom
Yeah.
and running with it.
I just never could get that. I just thought, how can you get this from the Bible?
And then they had the 1335 days of verse 12, another period, not overlapping the 1260 as originally, but extending from the Cedar Point Convention to 1926, a convention, a special event in London, England.
Yeah, I think people just tuned out. They must have just tuned out during those.
But then we got new light, because we used to teach in the earlier decades, when I was taught, that the 2300 days of Daniel 8 was a period from the end of the London Convention till 1932, when the theocratic organization was brought into its right condition. But we had new light on that in the government book.
Yeah.
Now it's a period from 1938 to 1944, during the Second World War. So, okay, they're apparently still adhering to that belief, but you can see the chaos here. This is Humpty Dumpty
This is
at his
proof
ripest.
that we're not living in the last days.
Well, yeah,
Because they don't have understanding.
They don't have understanding, and they've demonstrated it over and over again. So,
Yeah.
so then the book is still sealed,
Yes.
just like Revelation is still sealed. So the finished mystery is not finished.
Yeah. We're in good company. We're like Daniel. We don't understand.
So if that's the frustration of being a Jehovah's Witness or an ex-Jehovah's Witness, that you still don't know the answer to these things, 140 years after the mystery was supposed to be finished, then we are back to, I hope, a more humble position, which is it for us to know these things?
Yeah.
Or are we like Daniel?
Yeah. And I think with the witnesses, everything is important to them. So they don't distinguish between what in Scripture is said, this is important, this is emphasized, you need to know this, and what is not. Everything, it's just like, it's all major point.
And you can be disfellowshipped for disagreeing with any of it.
Right.
At any time. Now we want to do an appendix to this series on Daniel involving another mother text from the prophets before Daniel. That's the book of Micah, but we'll come to that in the next segment.